After Mercedes' performance took quite the unusual turn this season, there's a lot going on. On the one hand, Hamilton's had the first winless campaign of his F1 career. On the other hand, his teammate George Russell grabbed his first win at the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. If we're being more specific, there's just one burning question on everyone's mind right now. Keep watching to find out if George Russell is gonna replace Hamilton in 2023. First off, is Hamilton gonna be the first driver on the team for 2023? As we know, Hamilton's contract is up by the end of 2023, which probably sparked rumors about his retirement in the first place. In fact, it got to the point that Daniel Ricciardo was offered a reserve driver role on the team, with the implication that he'd replace the 7-time champion once the contract ended. But it didn't take long enough for Hamilton to make sure everyone knew that he's gonna be around for a long time. On top of that, with Mercedes team boss Toto Wolff discussing a multi-year contract with the 7-time champion, they've definitely got their eyes set on a record-breaking 8th championship. Having said that, while he's still a part of Mercedes next season, we're not too sure if his team considers him to be the first driver. After all, Russell did a pretty good job this year with his consistent performance and his first win at the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. If anything, that puts him in a pretty great position at Mercedes. On top of that, Sascha Roos seems to think that the German formation is gonna have to wait for the early stages of the season, following up Russell's performance in 2022. If we're being honest, many of us were expecting Hamilton to keep his teammate behind him for the first season. Nothing was further from the truth. In fact, the talented Briton ended up scoring a lot more points than Hamilton and saved himself from any potential threats in the next season. If anything, Russell might even end up as the team's first driver. On top of that, even Roos talked about how no one was expecting him to surpass the 7-time champ. In fact, he said that while Hamilton's definitely making a comeback next season, we're not too sure if he's going to remain the undisputed number one. If anything, Mercedes is going to see something similar to the heyday of Nico Rosberg and Hamilton. Adding to that, he said that he's expecting the new season to start at about the same level, but it's only going to be a matter of a few races within the team. They're gonna decide who to rely on, and of course, performing the car in the first few races is gonna say all about it. Think about it. The 24-year-old Russell joined the team to replace Valtteri Bottas, and he ended up not only outscoring Hamilton, but also becoming the only Mercedes race winner in 2022. On the other hand, the 37-year-old says he wasn't really surprised. If anything, he said his teammates' performance at Williams and called it pretty impressive. And for the 2022 season, there's no doubt that he pretty much surpassed himself. As Hamilton said, he got the most out of it in every race. Not to mention, Hamilton's playing down the risk of Russell conflict. If a one-time Grand Prix winner threatens a 7-time champion, that's not a great look. So even if we are out here saying that Russell might overtake Hamilton and become the first driver, the 7-time champion isn't gonna confirm it. If anything, he thinks his relationship with his teammate won't become strained in the upcoming season. But that's not all. The 7-time champion seems to think his teammate was prepared for the task anyway. Why? Well, probably because over the years with the team, he's gotten a chance to know the engineers, and that sort of helped him adapt. At least that's what Hamilton said, adding that he was the perfect reinforcement for the team, and there's good communication between the teammates with a lot of mutual respect. And moving on to 2023, he doesn't expect that to change in any way, even if Mercedes jumps back into the championship fight with Red Bull and Ferrari. In fact, when asked specifically about the potential conflict, he simply said, "I don't believe that will happen." Instead, he quoted his experience, saying he's been with the team long enough to handle these kinds of challenges anyway. Coming up, Russell's take on the learning process in Mercedes. The Briton seems to think there's still plenty of room for improvement. In fact, he's also talked about how he spent the early stages of the 2022 season adjusting to the relative scale of Mercedes' operation. The former F2 champion definitely felt like a rookie. Let's face it, the team operates on a level that he's never really experienced before, and he even mentioned that while talking about his struggles in Formula 1. As it would with anyone, it took him some time to learn and understand how to get the most out of the team and the car. All in all, the potential within the team is huge, and the Briton appreciates the resources he has to bring out the most in his performance. If anything, he's still trying to wrap his head around it. And moving on to the team's 1-2 in Sao Paulo, Wolff said he was pretty glad to have two competitive drivers on the team on the grid competing for victories. If anything, he thinks it's a lot better than having a puppy on the team. On top of that, he thinks that having two alpha drivers is the best thing possible for the team. And isn't that right? With two talented drivers like Russell and Hamilton and the resources the team has, it's fair to say they've got their eyes set on the 2023 championship. Up next, Mercedes teammates, competitive yet respectful. Former F1 champion Jenson Button seems to think the two have mutual respect for each other, despite their individual competitive nature, which makes them an ideal pair for Mercedes. Mercedes. There's no doubt that Hamilton doesn't want his teammate to beat him because he wants to win every race and make his way to the 8th championship. On the other hand, Button said that if George had come in about 5 years earlier, we'd see a pretty different Lewis, especially talking about his views on his teammate and personal opinions. But right now, he's become a pretty rounded character in terms of the way he goes racing. Think about it. He's seen so much success in the sport, and even though he's gonna retire in the next few years, Button said that the 7-time champ is also taking experience into account. On the one hand, Russell is probably as good as it gets for people in their 20s. On the other hand, Lewis is in his late 30s, and he's still able to fight and even beat his teammate. So maybe the competitive nature here is just their drive for success. On top of that, the former F1 champion also mentioned that Lewis is pretty comfortable in himself, which is why he isn't threatened so easily. And the fact that the two are pretty respectful is exactly what makes them an ideal pair. In fact, for any ideal pair in Formula 1, there needs to be clear communication so the two can be open with their opinions. But let's face it, as Button mentioned, that's the only way they're gonna work together and build as a team. What's more, Russell is convinced Mercedes will make a comeback in 2023. While talking about the Hamilton-Russell conflict, the 24-year-old is convinced that Mercedes will be in a much stronger position from the very first race, as the team looks to fight for the F1 world title once again. After all, there's no doubt that the 2022 season was quite challenging, to say the least. And let's not forget how the German manufacturer's recent winning streak broke right at the start of Formula 1's new era of aerodynamic regulations. In fact, the Silver Arrow's W13 car was pretty much plagued with all the porpoising and bouncing issues, which also messed with the team's competitiveness throughout the year. And in the end, Mercedes slipped right behind Red Bull and Ferrari to make it to 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship. On the other hand, George has been pretty impressive throughout his rookie Mercedes season, right after his first race victory, as he finished 2 places and 35 points clear of Lewis in the driver's standings. If anything, the 24-year-old is pretty confident that fans are gonna see Mercedes back to their actual level of performance in the upcoming season. As the Briton said, they haven't forgotten how to build a fast race car. We just got it wrong this year. On top of that, he said that Mercedes is definitely a step behind the other top teams, specifically Red Bull and Ferrari. So clearly there's a lot of catching up to do, but he's also confident that 2023 isn't gonna be the same as the past season. If anything, he's aiming for more wins and championships, saying that when you join a team like Mercedes, it's fair to say you're only gonna expect victories. And finally, Russell and Hamilton aim for race wins and world titles in 2023. While they're not too sure how much the team's rivals will improve over the winter, the two are pretty confident that Mercedes will catch up to the top teams and make their way to more victories. If anything, despite the impressive performance, George isn't very proud of his career-best 4th place finish. And let's not forget that he's the first teammate to beat Hamilton in 6 years. In fact, he said that while finishing ahead of the 6-time champion means you're probably gonna grab the next world title, it's also frustrating to be fighting for P4, P5, P6, and so on, rather than podiums, and he doesn't want himself or the team in that position. Having said that, there's a lot we can expect from Mercedes in the upcoming season, but guess we'll probably have to wait to find out. And with that, that's a wrap for this video. Do you think George Russell is going to replace Lewis Hamilton in 2023? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.